In Havana, Cuba, power has been restored to over 83% of the population. Heads of states and representatives from the BRICS group begin arriving in Russia one day before the summit to be held in Kazan. And in Lebanon, the Israeli regime continues massive aggressions against the southern suburbs of Beirut. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Havana, Cuban power has been restored to over 83.6% of the population. The Electric Union of the Capital Province reported that currently 261 circuits have service, which represents 508 megawatts. In this regard, the General Director of Electricity of the Ministry of Energy and Mines of Cuba, Lázaro Guerra Hernández, informed that work is being done to consolidate the existing microsystems. The Mariel Unit Number 8 is already in service, and so are the floating power plants of Havana, Mariel, and Energas Boca de Jaruco, which are collectively providing coverage to the capital and some areas of the provinces of Mayabeque and Artemisa. The central microsystems is supplying more than 200 megawatts from the provinces of Matanza to Camagüey. The rest of the provinces have functional subsystems. The Electric Union stressed it keeps working to follow the strategy in place to guarantee the connection of the national electric system. In Cuba, meteorological authorities report that Tropical Storm Oscar is advancing slowly over Cuban territory, moving through the province of Guantanamo. Likewise, authorities communicated it has been moving towards the west at 4 kilometers per hour, and it is 15 kilometers northeast of Guantanamo City and 45 kilometers from Holguin. They also pointed out that the most heavy rainfalls are occurring in Maicí, Baracoa, and San Antonio del Sur in Guantanamo province. They added that storm surges will be likely at the northern coast of Guantanamo, Holguin, and Las Tunas. And in Cali, Colombia, global leaders and environmental experts gathered on Sunday for the opening ceremony of the 16th meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity, COP16, a 12-day meeting aimed at advancing biodiversity conservation. The meeting begins on Monday and runs through November 1st. The COP16 brings together more than 15,000 people from over 190 countries to push for action on biodiversity conservation, making it the most attended event since this conference began in 1994. The Colombian government is pushing as host for the meeting to be the most inclusive in the organization's history. The goal of this meeting is for countries to take action to protect the world's flora and fauna. And thousands of Venezuelan women mobilized and developed activities in different states of the country for the fight against breast cancer. The Venezuelan women enjoyed physical activities as a place for recreation and sharing among breast cancer survivors and those who defend this fight. During the day, the participants from different states of the country urged the people to go for medical checkups to detect this pathology in time. Venezuelan men also took part in the festivities developed by the National Executive as a joint fight against this disease. And on Monday, the Public Prosecutor's Office of Venezuela announced the detention of the former president of flagship oil company PDVSA, Pedro Tellechea. Through a statement, the Attorney General of Venezuela, Tarek William Saab, informed that after an exhaustive scientific research, Pedro Tellechea Ruiz was arrested alongside his immediate collaborators under the accusations of committing felonies against the nation, especially the handout of company Intel and the automated control and command system of PDVSA to a CIA-ruled enterprise, those violating all legal mechanisms and Venezuela's national sovereignty. The prosecutor's office also stated that these actions were conducted under strict legality and in full constitutional cooperation with the Venezuelan head of state. In Haiti, violence by criminal groups keeps escalating despite the efforts made by the UN mission and the national police. As a result, the United Nations Security Council voted unanimously on Friday to extend the arms embargo on the Caribbean nation to include all kinds of weapons and ammunition. This resolution empowers the 193 UN member states to take appropriate steps to thwart the illicit arms trafficking in Haiti, which has been on a rise, mainly coming from Florida in the United States. Moreover, criminal groups not only control up to 80% of the capital, but also are impacting surrounding areas. In this context, as resident of Salina, share her life story.
Bandits drove us out of the area, and now we can't sleep at home. I'm staying with my brother, but he won't be able to keep us for long, as he's already taken our children to Pétionville. The house is too narrow and can't hold us all. We have nowhere to go and all our belongings have been left behind. We've only just heard that one of my brother's houses has been burnt down. He and I had our houses on one plot of land. Mine hasn't been burnt down yet, because a police tank is now in the area.
In the United States, presidential candidate for the Democratic Party, Kamala Harris, continued with her electoral campaign ahead of the November 5th election day. During her visit to the state of Georgia, Harris emphasized that U.S. citizens must remember the power they have in their hands. During an interview, the vice president expressed that Donald Trump should never again stand behind the seal of the President of the United States. Furthermore, after insults made by her Republican rival on Saturday, Harris asserted that Trump's behavior would degrade the presidency, adding that the country deserves better. For his part, Republican candidate and candidate for re-election Donald Trump visited a McDonald's restaurant in Pennsylvania. During the day, Trump also held a presidential rally in the city of Lancaster, where he again made special emphasis on immigration and the increase of crime in the United States. Recent polls show that both candidates are on equal footing to assume the presidency, and the race is expected to be defined by how they do in the country's key states. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Russia, the 16th BRICS Summit will be held from October 22nd to the 24th in Kazan under the motto Strengthening Multilateralism for Equitable Global Development and Security. Leaders of BRICS countries will exchange views on main affairs as cooperation, security, economic, and humanitarian ties. They will address a likely expansion of BRICS re-establishing the partner state status. The heads of the new development bank, the BRICS Business Council, the Interbank Cooperation Mechanism, and the Women's Business Alliance will be holding debates, whose results will be provided in the summit's Kazan declaration. On the closing day, a BRICS Plus meeting will take place, participating almost 40 countries to discuss about the war escalation in the Middle East and cooperation of BRICS states and the Global South in the interest of ensuring sustainable development. And this Sunday, the presidency of Brazil informed through a statement that President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva would not attend the BRICS Plus summit held in the Russian city of Kazan for health issues. The press service of the country informed the Brazilian president suffered a domestic injury in the back of his head and was received by the Syrian Lebanese hospital in Brasilia. The personnel of the hospital said it was not a serious injury, but he must avoid long-duration trips. Lula da Silva was going to travel on Saturday to the BRICS summit. However, despite this injury, the president will be participating in the BRICS Plus summit through video conference. In this context, the Foreign Minister of Brazil, Mauro Vieira, arrived in Russia on Monday. His visit comes just one day before the BRICS summit in the city of Kazan, where it will be held for the first time in an expanded format between October 22nd and the 24th. During the summit, the leaders of the current 10 member countries will discuss global issues such as the Middle East crisis and political and financial operations within the bloc. And the Executive Vice President of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, arrived this Monday as well in Russia to participate in the BRICS summit to be held in the city of Kazan from October 22nd to the 24th. The vice president is accompanied by the foreign minister of the South American country, Ivan Hill. The Venezuelan delegation, headed by teleSUR Rodriguez, joins the leaders of more than 20 emerging countries arriving in the Russian nation for the BRICS summit. The Venezuelan participation occurs after recent remarks by President Nicolás Maduro, who affirmed the country is ready to join the bloc. The BRICS has been chaired by Russia since January 2024, when 5 countries joined the group: Egypt, Iran, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Ethiopia. And the President of the United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, arrived in Moscow on Sunday to participate in the upcoming BRICS summit to take place in Kazan and to hold diplomatic meetings with his Russian counterpart. In this regard, President Vladimir Putin said that the volume of trade between Moscow and Abu Dhabi has tripled in the last 3 years, which has been beneficial for both countries' economies. Putin also took the opportunity of the Emirates leaders' arrival to talk about the current escalation of violence in the Middle East, describing it as very complicated. The Russian head of state qualified as a pleasure the talks with Al Nahyan when addressing the cooperation opportunities between both nations. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Palestine, Israeli occupation forces killed 33 people following an airstrike on the Jabalia refugee camp. In this regard, the Gaza Health Ministry reported that more than 630 Palestinians have been killed since the Zionist army restarted its military operation in northern Gaza 17 days ago. In addition, the health authority denounced that 3 hospitals are working at a partial capacity to tend to the wounded citizens and the thousands of civilians seeking refuge in the region. In this context, the United Nations has expressed its concern at the destruction caused by the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian territories. Also in Palestine, Israeli occupation forces intensified the blockade of food, medicine, and fuel in the northern Gaza Strip, deepening the humanitarian crisis in the territory. Local authorities condemned the continuous Israeli attacks against citizens in their homes and refugee centers. They also expressed that the Israeli occupation bombed most of the water wells and attacked those who tried to access a limited amount of water. The Palestinian resistance movement Hamas condemned the new level of Israeli criminality, which coincided with the announcement by the Zionist government to initiate the so-called comprehensive plan to end all aspects of life in the north. The Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine accused the United States of being the real ringleader of the aggression, which includes eliminating entire neighborhoods in Gaza. Likewise, Israel continues its raids and illegal arrest of Palestinian citizens in the occupied West Bank. In this regard, organizations defending the rights of Palestinian prisoners reported that the Israeli army detained over 18 Palestinians, including former prisoners and dozens of young people. Meanwhile, the entities highlighted that since the onset of the offensive against the Palestinian people in October 2023, over 11,400 arrests have been documented in the occupied West Bank and Jerusalem. They further detailed that the Tel Aviv forces have refused to reveal the identities and whereabouts of the detainees, so it is estimated that the numbers are higher than the data collected by the organizations defending Palestinian prisoners. And in Lebanon, the National State News Agency denounced that the Israeli army used internationally banned white phosphorus munitions in deadly attacks on the country's southern region. Israeli warplanes attacked cities with white phosphorus shells on the outskirts of Far Shuba, causing fires in the city's forests. Furthermore, experts indicate that in recent attacks on Beirut, the missiles contained depleted uranium and chemicals, which, in addition to destroying the country's infrastructure, seek to poison the soil, air, and water, but also the bodies of thousands of people. This would not be the first time Israel used banned munitions against the Lebanese population since the beginning of its bombings. And the government of Iran warned that any attack by Israeli forces will be met with an imminent response against military targets. The Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs informed that a bombing against the country or its nuclear facilities will mean crossing the red line between the parties. In this regard, it detailed that the Iranian army knows the military locations of Israel and will not attack any civilian installation. He also remarked that the occupying troops do not have the capacity to attack Palestine and Lebanon without the military financing they receive from the United States government. And in Switzerland, the European Regional Director of the WHO, Hans Kluge, reported that 1,000 women and children from Gaza and Palestine will be evacuated to Europe in the upcoming months.
Complicated situation, but I'm very pleased to hear about the commitment that I heard this morning from my special representative of 1,000 more medical evacuations within the next month to the European Union.
And in the Vatican, Pope Francis urged peace and protection of the frail affected by armed conflict. Pope Francis, after a canonization mass, renewed the call to pray for the countries at war and urged against all forms of exploitation of their dignity and their territories. He also invited to continue praying for the peoples and martyrs of Palestine and Lebanon. He called for peace. The Supreme Pontiff urged the political and civil authorities to guarantee the protection of the most fragile and their fundamental rights. In Serbia, thousands of citizens mobilized to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Belgrade in the Second World War. During the demonstrations, the traditional March of the Immortal Regiment and the wreath-laying ceremony at the monument to the liberators of Belgrade took place. Citizens commemorate the liberation of Serbia from the Nazis in the Second World War, which is associated with the end of the operation in Belgrade on October 20, 1944. In that sense, according to official figures, more than 7,000 Russian soldiers belonging to the Red Army were buried in the country during the conflict against Nazi Germany. And in Vietnam, on Monday, the National Assembly voted for the new president of the Socialist Republic. The session of the Vietnamese parliament finished on October 21st after all of the 440 National Assembly deputies voted in favor of electing Luong Quoc as constitutional president of the country. Abided by the national laws, Luong Quoc will serve as head of state until 2026. The presidential election came after the former president To Lam, who took office in May, had been appointed as Secretary General of the Vietnamese Communist Party. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.